Now in this video, we're going to focus in on adding the final touches to our character. I want to start focusing on adding in detail to her jewelry, her clothing, and whatever else that will make her look very regal and really give this intricate quality to my concept. Let's start by adjusting the spacing between our brushes. What this does is it gives our brush a very roundish circular feel to it. It looks like several little circles lined up together. Just draw a big line across to test and you can immediately see how much more different my brush looks now. It doesn't have that smooth straight line finish to it. It now has this very like almost roundish texture to it. And I'm going to draw along her necklace to add this texture so that it gives the feeling of beads kind of going along her necklace. And now using a thin angled brush, I'm just going to lower the spacing a little. I'm going to start adding these very thin lines going across. Almost, again, this is that very intricate detail that I want to start adding to the jewelry. I tried doing it with the plain round brushes and it didn't look as prominent as I would have liked, so I'm starting to add a much more dramatic edge to it and I think it looks a lot better. And now with a rounder brush, I'm going to select a lighter gray color and draw a big pendant down the center. I want to give it a really cool angular shape, so and I also want it to look very solid as well. And I'm going to paint a big black oval in the center. This is later on going to look like a nice big black stone in the middle of her pendant once we add a little bit of highlight to this area. And then now I'm also going to take my angled brush and I'm going to create these very thin flower petal-like shapes going across my entire necklace. And, I'm keeping it very rough and not worrying too much about making it look perfect. In the end, I really wanted to have more of a drawn feel, but a thought out feel. So it shouldn't look messy, but it should also have a roughness to it, if that makes sense. And now I'm doing the same on the other side. Now with a lighter gray, I'm going to start adding in even more detail. I'm just going to put in these very small shapes around my pendant. And the reason I'm adding dark on top of light is it creates an impression of depth. It makes it feel like the lighter things are on top of the darker things, and the darker gray almost seems like the middle seams between something, if that makes sense. The light is almost supposed to indicate that that part of the jewelry is coming toward us, while the black indicates that it's in the background. And you can choose to work on different layers if you want. This is up to you. And now I'm also going to start adding in these kind of grayish triangles just to make my necklace look a little more interesting, give it that, extra ornamental feel to it. I don't want it to look too flat, and I like to add in a lot of detail when it comes to jewelry. It just makes for my character to look more interesting and regal. Now I want to add in some highlight to my oval in the center, as I had mentioned earlier. I'm going to keep it very simple because when you zoom out, you're not going to want to see all that tiny little bit of detail because this necklace is actually quite small. So I just took a medium colored gray and added a loose lighting around it. And then I added a very thick solid white on the top. And I'm just going in there with my thin brush and adding in a little highlight around the smaller beaded parts. And you know, when I zoom out, I can't really tell, so I'm not sure if that detail is worth keeping, so I'm going to get rid of it. But when I zoomed out, I noticed that the big pendant was very visible and it looked really good. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take that thin lighter gray and just outline the entire pendant. This will kind of make it, look like it's coming toward us and stand out a little bit more. I'm going to attempt to add a little highlight around here again and see if these shapes work. You know, when you're doing such intricate jewelry, it's always good to just zoom out as often as you can to see if this works. And if it works, keep it. If it doesn't work, don't keep it. So this is like a process that you can use your own judgment to gauge whether it works or not. And now with a thinner medium gray colored brush, I'm going to start outlining those flower petal shapes that I had done earlier. Just as I did with the pendant, I want to add that same kind of detail to it because I think it really looked pretty cool when I zoomed out. So I want to add that because, it really, it kind of makes it stand out more, I think. And I'm going to take the same brush that I did earlier and I'm going to space out the spacing between the brush to give it that beaded look. And now I'm kind of adding in these very light brush strokes. And it doesn't look so great from far, but it does give texture when you zoom out and look at it. It doesn't look like a perfect smooth line. Now with the lighter gray, I'm going to draw inside the petals. Don't worry about making it look too perfect. It has this kind of cool roughness to it, but it looks nice, so it works. Now on another layer, which I'm going to kind of move around so that it doesn't overlap or, I don't paint over the other things that I've done in the foreground with the lighter gray. With a darker medium gray, I'm just very loosely adding in some brush strokes. Again, it just seems like there's this beadwork that is present. It looks random in this zoomed out version, but when you zoom out, it just looks nice. It looks like it makes sense. So this is what I mean when I say you don't have to worry too much about adding detail that won't work if it's zoomed out. Now I want to draw some loose beads kind of hanging down from the pendant. Again, to talk about detail, when I look at it this zoomed out, we could easily draw the string between the beads to make it look like a real necklace, but we don't need to because our brains can kind of put in that information. Visually, it makes sense to us. I want to break that big white shape that is her skin that is underneath her necklace. So I'm going to kind of break this shape by adding in some hanging beads falling down from her necklace. This makes the shape a little more interesting. It doesn't make it look so graphic. And, it also makes the necklace look really pretty. And now that I have these basic graphic shapes laid out, I'm going to start in with a lighter gray and, add in just very small, minute details like highlight and, a few little brighter spots here and there. And it just adds an element to it, but it's not too overwhelming. Now, holding down the shift key, I'm going to select all the layers that have the necklace on them. And holding down Command or Control G, I'm going to group these all together. And then I'm going to add a color to it, like orange. And that way I know that this is my necklace for sure. Now let's focus on adding in earrings. I'm going to make them as ornamental and pretty like the necklace, and I'm going to also use the same elements and design techniques that I did for the necklace and add it to the earrings as well, just so that it looks similar, has the same style to it. And I had drawn this earlier when I had done my foundation sketch, and I'm redrawing this now, but in my mind I remember what this sketch looked like. Now I'm going to start by coloring in these circles that I have drawn, similar to the way I did the necklace. You want to start with big shapes and then start adding in the lighter layers after that. Just like I did with the necklace, I'm going to start drawing an outline to give my my earrings, that nice textured feel to it. And I'm going to do that all around, and it instantly gives my necklace a really cool, interesting touch to it. It looks like these beads that have been put together. And just like I did with the big pendant in the middle of my necklace, I'm going to create a similar shape in my earrings as well. Now I want to just create some detail within my earring that's not too overwhelming, and I don't want to add something too intricate because there's such detail in the necklace right now. So I'm going to just zoom in and I'm going to start adding in some very loose lines. Again, remember to separate the spacing between your brush to get this beaded effect. I'm just going to add these very simple lines that kind of indicate this is the design that's on my earring, but nothing too heavy. I'm just going to go over it again with a lighter gray so that I think I want it to be more visible when I zoom out. Now I'm going to add that same detail to the other side of her earring. And now with a dark black, like the background for my earrings, I'm just going to draw two beaded looking loops connecting the two of them together. Now I want to go in there and start adding the final details to that big round oval in the center of your earrings, kind of similar to what I did in the necklace. Of course, remember to add that highlight to that oval. And then I'm also going to add a slight highlight to the top. Now, similar to the necklace, I'm also going to add some more beads kind of hanging down from the earrings. Now, just like I did with the necklace, I'm going to add all the layers into one group and call that earring, and keep that in a separate folder. Now I want to also give my character a really cool, very simple, elegant kind of headdress going down her forehead. I want to use the same technique that I did with the necklace with, a lot of spacing between the brush. And I'm going to go ahead and add this along the entire shape of her hair. Again, this kind of really helps break the silhouette of that big black shape, and it just makes it a little more interesting. And now that I have such an ornate necklace and earrings, I have the same kind of technique on her head as well. So you have this detail going across the entire character. And now let's of course also add that to the group and rename it as well, just so that we're aware of it as we are painting. And if we need to go back and erase it or change it, we can do that and find it very easily. And now in the last detail that we're going to add to our character, I'm going to give a very simple outline and design to her clothing. And of course, play with this yourself. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a full opacity and flow brush, and with a medium gray, I'm going to start adding in these swirl type designs along the dress, just to indicate that there is a outfit on here and that it's not just one big black shape again. You always want to try and break that as much as you can. You don't want to have something too overwhelming or too blocky. Again, increasing the space between my brush, I'm going to add a similar technique that I did to the necklace and the earrings to the border of my character's outfit, just to make it a little more interesting, not to make it look too rough. When you zoom out, it will look like there's a cool little design on her outfit. And now with a small thin brush, I'm going to add in some random dots just going around. I'm going to use a lighter gray for this as well. I just think it just looks nicer, a little more interesting, not too plain and boring with those swirlies. Once you have your character and jewelry at a stage that you're happy with, we're going to move on to the next stage in our next video, which will be adding the final touches like highlight and shadow and just cleaning up whatever edges need to be taken care of.